When we think about the ocean's great hunters, it's easy to imagine sharks or billfish. But hiding much closer to the seafloor, waiting quietly in the shadows, lives another predator that challenges even the strongest of fishermen, the grouper. These fish are members of a large family ranging from the powerful gag grouper to the massive Goliath grouper, with red, black, and scamp species completing the list of the most common. Each has its own range and behavior, but all share one thing: they are masters of ambush. Grouper are structure-oriented creatures. They spend most of their lives hugging reefs, shipwrecks, rocky ledges, or even artificial structures like navigation markers and bridge pilings. They wait motionless, their broad bodies blending into the background before exploding forward to swallow anything unlucky enough to pass by. Crustaceans, baitfish, squid, nothing is off the menu. They are opportunistic feeders, and that makes them both fascinating to study and thrilling to catch. For anglers, grouper fishing is bottom fishing at its core. The technique seems simple: drop a bait to the bottom near structure and wait. But anyone who has tried it knows the truth. The challenge lies in the fight. Hooking a grouper means facing a fish that knows its home turf. The instant it feels the hook, it will dive for cover, wedging itself into holes or crashing back into the reef. Unless the fisherman reacts with strength and precision, the line will snap against the sharp edges of coral or rock. This is why grouper fishing is never about finesse. It is about power, timing, and control. The tackle, therefore, must be stout. Heavy rods, reels with immense drag, and thick braided line are the standard. A light setup simply won't survive the first powerful dive. This is a battle where the angler must turn the fish quickly, forcing it upward and away from structure before it finds shelter. Every second counts, and hesitation almost always means defeat. Over the years, fishermen have developed rigs that suit this demanding style of fishing. One of the most popular is the sliding sinker rig, often called the Carolina rig. It allows the bait to move naturally while keeping it close to the bottom. The leader length can vary: shorter in shallow water, longer in deeper or clearer conditions. Another classic is the dropper loop, also known as the chicken rig, which works beautifully when drifting over reefs. Both rigs are designed to present the bait where grouper are most likely to strike, while giving anglers the leverage to pull them out quickly. When it comes to bait, grouper are not picky. Live bait fish such as sardines, grunts, and pinfish are extremely effective. But fresh-cut bait can work just as well, sometimes even better. A large live shrimp will tempt not only grouper, but also snapper and other bottom dwellers. Frozen baits like Spanish sardines or squid are widely used, releasing strong scents and oils that travel through the current to lure fish from hiding. Fishermen know that the rule of thumb is simple: use the lightest sinker and the smallest hook strong enough to do the job. Conditions, current, wind, and depth dictate the rest. Circle hooks have become the standard, and in many regions, they are now required by law. Unlike traditional J-hooks, circle hooks reduce deep hooking, which means that undersized or out-of-season fish can be released with much higher survival rates. This is vital for sustaining healthy populations, as grouper are slow-growing and vulnerable to overfishing. But no matter the rig or bait, the key lies in the spots themselves. Grouper fishermen guard their locations carefully. While there are public reef numbers available, The most productive spots are usually discovered by individual anglers, sometimes by accident. Many fishermen talk about finding new ledges or wrecks while trolling for other species like king mackerel. With modern GPS and fish finders, once a productive area is marked, it can provide action for decades if managed responsibly. Positioning the boat is another critical element. In the past, anchoring directly above the structure was common practice, but technology has changed the game. GPS trolling motors now allow anglers to hold position with pinpoint accuracy, hovering above the reef without ever dropping an anchor. This reduces time wasted and protects delicate reef systems from anchor damage. The ideal method is to position slightly up current of the structure, allowing bait to drift naturally back into the strike zone. This applies to chum as well. There is little point in releasing chum only for it to drift away from the target area. When the bite comes, the moment is unmistakable. A heavy thump followed by the raw power of a grouper trying to dive straight into the rocks. The angler must keep the rod tip low, drag set tight, and reel steadily, resisting the urge to jerk the rod in a traditional hook set. With circle hooks, the fish hooks itself as pressure builds. The goal is not just to hook the grouper, but to muscle it a few crucial feet away from structure. Once clear, the odds shift dramatically in favor of the fisherman. Artificial lures can also play a role, especially when grouper move into shallower water during certain seasons. Large, deep diving plugs trolled along reefs or rocky coastlines have proven effective, particularly for gag grouper in Florida and the Bahamas. Vertical jigging with butterfly jigs has gained popularity in deeper waters, allowing anglers to cover the bottom column without constantly rebaiting hooks. Even bucktail jigs, tipped with a strip of squid, can tempt a strike when natural bait is scarce. Different species bring different experiences. Red grouper, for example, are widely distributed across the Gulf of Mexico and are considered less finicky, often taking cut bait readily. Gag grouper, by contrast, are highly prized both for their fight and their flavor, often found shallower, and even around inshore docks and bridges. Then there is the legendary Goliath grouper, a giant that can grow to over 400 kilograms, capable of swallowing smaller fish whole and breaking even the strongest tackle. Once hunted to near extinction, strict protections now safeguard this species, allowing populations to slowly recover. For anglers, each grouper tells a story. The battle is not just against the fish, but against the reef, the current, and one's own endurance. To catch a grouper is to earn it, and to taste it is to appreciate why it remains one of the most valued catches in the ocean. Before we move from the shadowy world of grouper to the wide blue expanse where tuna roam, imagine for a moment what it means to chase one of the fastest fish in the sea. While grouper rely on ambush and raw strength near the bottom, tuna are built for speed endurance and open ocean battles. They can swim at speeds up to 160 kilometers per hour, slicing through the water with sleek, muscular bodies designed like torpedoes. To catch such a fish requires not only skill and stamina, but also deep understanding of the ocean's rhythms. On the small island of Iki in Japan, particularly the town of Katsumoto Tuna, fishing has become both an art and a way of life. Here, fishermen practice a traditional style known as pole and line fishing, or ipponzuri. Unlike massive industrial fleets that deploy miles of nets, these fishermen work in harmony with the sea, targeting tuna one at a time. It is a method that values quality over sheer volume producing tuna that are considered some of the finest in the world. The day begins before dawn, often at 2 or 3 in the morning. The crew prepares bait, usually live mackerel or squid, while the boat pushes out into the darkness. The air is sharp, the deck damp with sea spray, and every man knows the long hours that lie ahead. By the time the sun begins to rise, they are already scanning the horizon and the sonar screens for signs of a tuna school. Some days the search ends in disappointment. The fish move with the currents, and no technology can guarantee success. When the school is finally located, the work becomes a test of patience and precision. Fishermen attach bait fish to strong lines, drop them into the sea and wait. If there is no reaction, they reel up, adjust, and try again. This cycle repeats endlessly, sometimes for hours. Tuna are cautious hunters, and often it takes subtle changes the way a bait swims the depth it's presented to trigger a strike. But when it happens, when the line suddenly surges and a tuna realizes it has been hooked, the ocean explodes with energy. Unlike smaller fish, a tuna cannot simply be yanked to the surface. It must be guided carefully with constant tension to prevent it from tearing free. Pull too hard, and the fish panics, racing deep and exhausting itself to the point that its body overheats. Pull too little, and it will thrash wildly, risking both the catch and the fisherman's safety. The goal is balance enough pressure to subdue enough care to preserve the flesh. Once the tuna is brought aboard, a second battle begins, the battle against time. The body temperature of a freshly caught tuna is dangerously high, and if not cooled immediately, the meat will spoil. Fishermen act in a practice sequence first. They cut the gills and tail to drain the blood, preventing discoloration. Then, using a long wire, they destroy the fish's spinal nerves, a technique called Shinkeijin. This instantly halts muscle movement, preventing lactic acid buildup that would otherwise ruin the flavor. Next, the organs are removed and the entire fish is packed in ice or submerged in a slurry of seawater and crushed ice. Every step is about maintaining perfection. Large bluefin tuna, often weighing more than 100 kilograms, require special handling. They are placed in custom-built wooden boxes, their delicate skin wrapped in plastic to prevent ice damage. Overnight, the fish cool evenly before being transported to market. In Tokyo's famous Toyosu fish market, these carefully handled tuna can command staggering prices. A single fish has been known to sell for the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The emphasis here is not on numbers. Unlike industrial operations that haul in tons of tuna at a time, fishermen in Katsumoto focus on quality. They believe that catching fewer fish with care produces something far more valuable than mass harvests. This philosophy has allowed pole and line tuna to develop a reputation worldwide as premium seafood prized by chefs, loved by consumers, and increasingly seen as a model for sustainable fishing. Yet as refined as these methods are, tuna fishing remains unpredictable. Many days end without a single catch, the crew returning empty-handed despite hours of effort. It is a reminder that nature decides the outcome, and fishermen are guests in the ocean, not masters. When success comes, it is celebrated not only for the income it provides, but for the respect it pays to centuries of tradition. From the quiet docks of Iki, where fishermen handle each tuna with ritual care, we now shift to a much larger stage, the global tuna market. If you want to understand how one fish can shape economies, drive crime, and ignite international politics, there's no better example than tuna, particularly the bluefin. Every year, tuna supports a multi-billion-dollar industry. In places like Baja California, Mexico, tuna farming alone generates production worth more than $70 million annually. Across the Mediterranean, entire fleets are dedicated to catching and fattening bluefin in sea pens before exporting them mostly to Japan, where demand for sushi-grade tuna seems insatiable. Spain, Italy, Croatia, and Malta dominate this market. Their operations, often highly mechanized and industrial in scale, contrast sharply with the artisanal pole-and-line fishing of Japan. The appeal of bluefin tuna is almost mythical. Unlike skipjack or yellowfin, which are caught by the millions of tons, bluefin represents only a tiny fraction of the global tuna catch, barely a few percent. And yet, because of its rich, fatty meat, it commands astronomical prices. A single fish can fetch more than the value of several boatloads of other species combined. At Tokyo's famous New Year's auction, bluefin tuna have sold for prices rivaling luxury cars. One record-breaking sale exceeded the cost of a brand new Mercedes-Benz. This extraordinary value has predictably attracted darker forces. According to reports by the WWF and the FAO, the global tuna fleet is oversized by as much as 70% compared to what would be needed for sustainable harvests. The incentive structure is clear. When one fish can be worth tens of thousands of dollars, there is always pressure to catch more, even if quotas are exceeded or rules are bent. In parts of the Mediterranean, organized crime groups, including the Italian, Russian, and even some Asian mafias, have infiltrated the trade. Smuggling, underreporting, and black market sales are not uncommon. For small coastal nations, tuna is not just food, but political capital. Access agreements in which larger fleets pay poorer nations for the right to fish their waters often spark debate about fairness. On one hand, these deals bring revenue. On the other, they sometimes strip local communities of the very resources they need to survive. The bluefin tuna, therefore, is not just a fish. It is a flashpoint where money, culture, and power collide. But while bluefin gets most of the attention, the broader tuna family plays an equally critical role in global diets. Skipjack tuna, smaller and more abundant, makes up the majority of canned tuna consumed worldwide. Yellowfin tuna, with its firm, lean meat, supplies both sashimi markets and commercial food chains. Together, these species account for millions of tons of harvest each year, feeding billions of people. Without them, the world's seafood economy would look very different. The methods of capture vary widely. In the Atlantic, massive purse-seine nets encircle entire schools of tuna, scooping them up in one haul. Spotter planes sometimes assist identifying schools from the air and guiding boats to intercept. In the Pacific, long lines stretch for miles, with thousands of baited hooks targeting migrating tuna. In the Mediterranean, bluefin are often herded into large enclosures, then fattened on sardines and mackerel before being slaughtered and shipped to market. Each method has consequences: purse-seining risks bycatch of dolphins and other species, long lines can decimate seabird populations, and farming raises concerns about overfishing the smaller fish used as feed. In contrast, Japan's traditional pole and line approach seems almost quaint, but increasingly, it is being recognized as a model of sustainability, precisely because it avoids the massive collateral damage of industrial operations. One fish at a time, caught with care, may be slower, but it preserves the stock for the future. Still, the reality is that global demand continues to rise. In Europe and the United States, sushi has shifted from a luxury to a mainstream cuisine. Supermarkets stock tuna steaks Restaurants offer all-you-can-eat sashimi, and even casual diners expect fresh tuna on the menu. The result is a supply chain under immense pressure, one that stretches from the open oceans of the Pacific to the auction floors of Tokyo, from coastal villages in Southeast Asia to the high-end dining districts of New York and Paris. This pressure is felt not only by fishermen but also by regulators. International bodies like ICAT, the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas, set quotas and attempt to manage stocks. But enforcement is uneven. Some nations comply, others ignore, and still others quietly exceed their limits. The line between legal and illegal is often blurred. The fish don't recognize borders, and neither, it seems, do the fleets determined to chase them. What makes tuna particularly challenging to manage is its biology. These are migratory giants traveling thousands of miles across entire oceans. A bluefin born in the Gulf of Mexico may one day be caught near Spain. A yellowfin tagged near Hawaii may later be found in the waters off Central America. To manage such a species requires international cooperation on a scale rarely achieved in fisheries. Without it, the risk is clear: overfishing, stock collapse, and the loss of a resource that has fed humanity for centuries. Despite the threats, tuna's cultural and culinary importance continues to grow. In Japan, it remains the centerpiece of sushi culture, a symbol of precision and artistry. In the West, it has become a status symbol on fine dining menus. And in coastal communities worldwide, it is still the backbone of livelihoods connecting families to the sea in ways both economic and spiritual.